Well, greetings, everybody. It is the 15th of May of the grand old year 2016, and you are watching or listening to this week's edition of the Inworld Review. This is a show where we bring you the latest news, discussion, conversation, and whatever else really concerning the metaverse, the world of immersive virtual spaces online, collaborative, creative places that run live and your avatars interact with presence. It's all about entertainment and collaboration, communication, etc., etc. And they are not games, although sometimes you find games within them. They are places of empowerment, I should say. Now, that said, regular viewers may recognize the scenery around here today, because it's not the regular scenery, although one might say it is, because this is where we've been now for 3 weeks. We have become stranded in the strange, rather large, old territory. Well, no, I'm not going there. We're coming to you from Chilbo in Second Life. And if you were watching last week's show, you will know that the previous week's show was as scheduled from Second Life here, but we were here last week because there'd been a distributed denial of service attack. In other words, a cyber missile strike on our home grid, our HQ grid of the Great Canadian Grid. And we were all repaired by Monday and all that. But what happened yesterday? Exactly the same time. Another missile strike. And what do you do when a missile strikes? Well, you don't bring down the walls of the grid. You bring down the grid from inside those walls, so no further damage can be done. In other words, the strike hits nothingness as opposed to your grid. But unfortunately, you can't use the darn grid. Well, you've not got it, if you see what I mean. And this is causing a great deal of disturbance. The inconvenience of this, shall we say, last week, has rather been replaced this week by anger. I hate to say it, but anger. Reading the blogs and the messages and stuff. You know, people want to find out who's doing this, and they want to enforce a distributed denial of their body, I suspect. It is not pleasant. It also suggests that it's even more unlikely to have been an accident last week, when at the same time the same target is hit again yesterday. As I speak, the Great Canadian Grid is still offline. DigiWorlds itself is okay and still online this time round, even though they do share server farms, as it were. So it just seems to be in Canada that's been attacked this time round. Apparently, in a few days' time, both DigiWorlds and Canada were due to go offline for an hour or so in order to bring online some kind of more robust defenses. But, of course, this second attack has beaten them to it. I have a feeling, and I haven't been able to confirm with Roddy Mackey of Great Canada Grid. He'll be with us, we hope, next week, by the way. I haven't been able to confirm with him, but I get the impression that they will possibly keep the grid down longer this time, in order to put up these extra defenses, if that's what they are, before bringing the grid back online. But again, I'm sort of speculating on that front. But for those of you who go to the Great Canadian Grid, or indeed call it your home grid, that's really the most up-to-date news I can give you. So once again, we have this strange dilemma of being here in Second Life and not having access to all our guests and various people out on the hypergrid who might have been able to pop in and join us. Strangely enough, I did think to look through my friends list here in Second Life to see if there's anybody who sometimes joins us on the official Second Life show, but I can't actually see anybody online who I can sort of persuade to come and join us. So for this week's show, it's just going to be me, Maria, and James sort of delivering and commenting on the news as we go. Experience tells me that we'll have no problem filling 6 hours if we really want to, even doing that. But we'll try and keep it down to under 2. Whether we'll succeed is another matter. Anyway, as I said, it's just the 3 of us today. I'm going to reiterate who's here. On my left, I have my regular co-host from Hypergrid Business. That's Maria Korolev. Welcome, Maria.
Hi, Mel. Always a pleasure to be here.
And on my left, or did I say that already? Oh, well, on the other side, anyway, we got James Atloud, who's multitasking, operating all our cameras, and also contributing to the conversation. So welcome, James.
Well, thanks, Mel. Thanks for having me on. I enjoy this project very much.
And I have actually noticed a curiosity that I didn't mention last week, but Tara's wonderful little bear, 2 seats away from us, actually was armed with some serious defenses last week, pointing outwards for any intruders who decided to deny our program service. He didn't get to use his little weapon, and but I also noticed that in the intervening week, the weapon has gone. So we are defending.
I think there must be a 1-hour return because it disappeared halfway through the show last week.
Oh, that would explain it. Yes,
Yep.
Tara has 1-hour return, but that shouldn't have applied to me. Interesting.
Oh, but I put the object there. It was I don't even know where I got that thing. Some giant role-playing gun. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that explains everything.
Yep.
Well, suffice to say, it looks like, hey, you, the DOS attackers out there, we are undefended. We have no weaponry. Come and get us live on air, and let me see if I can trace you guys, and send a suitable present back to you. And really, no, you don't want that. You really, really don't want whatever present evil mind would dream up to return to you.
Well, it wasn't a good fit. He's such an adorable bear, so I felt bad putting a gun where his little ukulele is.
Yeah, it was. It really, it's bad news when you got to consign your lovely furry citizens to defence duties, isn't it?
True. Yep.
It's a bad sign of any society that has to do that. Anyway, never mind. So having introduced everybody, I'm going to get round to the news. I'm simply going to be reading out, as I always do, the main links on my main Twitter feed, at least for the moment. That's at twitter.com/Malburns, Malburns, all one word. And I have links there to everything concerning the hypergrid, OpenSim, other virtual world platforms, and indeed virtual reality technology, including some things that I actually now interpret as being surround vision rather than actual VR, but all leading towards one end, shall we say. Okay. I'm going to start 6 days ago. I have no idea of the details here, but you'll find the links to the actual articles on my stream that I just gave you. This one I posted via Flipit, which is a news magazine I read through to pick up a lot of items. And it's entitled "Creating Graffiti in VR Looks So Real, You Can Almost Smell the Fumes." The picture to go with this actually shows you some bog standard graffiti like you might see on a wall somewhere where graffiti is allowed. And I can't remember the exact article. It's about 6 days ago. But I have a feeling that this was created using this new in-virtual kind of art program where you can literally hold things up and spray graffiti on the wall and create art in the virtual environment. And they say it's so real you can almost smell the fumes, or whatever else is decaying around the object in question. All interesting stuff. This was followed by an article, uploadvr.com. That's uploadvr in letters and all one word.com. They had an interesting article during the week, which harks back to something I've discussed here on many an occasion. And the title of the article is "Theatre Convicts Virtual Reality's Storytelling Problem." In print it says virtual reality has a storytelling problem, and theatre will save it. And this was quite interesting because I do often comment on how From cave art onwards to the printed page, we tend to confine our narrative stories into frames. Even cinema, television, and virtual worlds on your monitor are, to a certain extent, frames. And in order to focus people's attention on the narrative, you are also inadvertently, even if it's text on the page, making them focus on the frame. However, this article does actually point out that maybe, just maybe, the thing that breaks the rule there is real life theatre. I don't mean watching a theatre show filmed on television or a movie. I mean going into a theatre where you have the performers on stage. And a lot of tactical methodology and storytelling on stage actually does involve off-screen, off-stage, I should say. So I'm getting it wrong already. Off-stage events, and in the case of large stages, side-of-stage events. And actors and theatre directors are actually used to not so much taking us out of the frame, but distracting our attention so that we move left and right within a wider frame than any other media. And so this actually raises some interesting points about, if you have, say, 120-degree view in front of you, you can consider, even if the focus is in the center of that viewpoint, you can use the additional view to shift the narrative focus. And there are instances of theatre events, for example, where theatre has been in the round and events have happened behind the audience, i.e. somebody walking in through the audience into the middle where the stage is in the round, if you see what I mean. So theatre has traditionally done quite a few things that endeavour to break that single focal point. Anyway, I thought that was interesting and maybe worthy of later discussion. Next, there was a post at lifehacker.com. That's life as in living it, and hacker as in naughty DDoS people.
What?
And lifehacker.com. It's a very good site.
Yes, it is. Yep.
The headline is VR Ridge, or V Ridge, runs PC-based VR games on your Google Cardboard headset. And this is simplicity itself. It assumes that if you have Google Cardboard, which of course is for mobile devices really, it basically has a way of projecting those games that would normally be run on a single screen PC into a Google Cardboard compatible scene. And so, just as you might use Google Cardboard to view a widescreen cinema film close up instead of on a big screen, you can do the same with games and Google Cardboard. It basically represents the game right in front of you via Google Cardboard. It's not clearly it doesn't turn any non-virtual game into a virtual reality. It just simply uses Google Cardboard to present it to you, up front and to the point and in your face, and all the other expressions one can come up with.
I've had a modicum of success with this now. I have not been able to. I was going to try and run some Steam VR games, and I have not been able to have that be a success. But I have been able to experience the Portal demo test from Valve Software and walk around in that room. I've walked around inside of a Van Gogh exhibit, and it's definitely a work in progress, but it's pretty thrilling to have this price point to experience these environments. I just want to make the connection now to OpenSim or Second Life, and haven't got that yet.
Yeah. And you've been using Google Cardboard to do that, yes. Right. So there is. Yeah. I think there is some software. I think I may have it that allows me to take my desktop and send that via Wi-Fi to an iPad, and it takes over your iPad screen. And if that can work with, say, an iPhone too, then presumably you could put an iPhone in Google Cardboard and be broadcasting via Wi-Fi your desktop screen into the iPhone that's in the Cardboard.
Yeah, I think it's very similar type of technology. It requires fooling. My experience is that you're kind of fooling some of the apps into think that they're running on an Oculus or a Vive, but it did work a little bit.
Mm.
Yeah. Uh, I've tried one of those things, and the frame rate is kind of slow with OpenSim. So
Yeah.
Yeah, very slow.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very difficult for VR.
But it's
Yeah.
nice. It's nice these folks are getting some press. I've seen several articles now about I guess it's RiffCat is the organization, and vRidge is this specific application.
Mhm.
Mm.
Fun.
I think it's on my list, so I'll probably come to it. But there used to be a Linden Lab employee here in Second Life called Babbage Linden. Wonderful coder. He's British. I met him a few times. And he's long since left Linden Lab, and now actually he's one of the tech leads at, dare I say it, the Fastbook. But he actually did a presentation that was put online earlier in the week. I'm hoping it's coming up. His real name is Jim Perbrick. And it was an article presentation about scaling virtual worlds and things. And maybe whatever he's doing at Facebook has something to do with this. But it was he was hearkening back to his days of Second Life, and he was pointing out almost a futility of trying to scale worlds like Second Life to work with modern VR. And, he was citing, not just latency, but the frame rates and everything else. And, even if you can succeed in somehow porting them, the user experience is not good enough because their architecture is not supporting, the frame rates that will work with close-up VR. But that was very interesting. Hopefully it's in my list later on. If it's not, I'll try and dig up the link for later.
Yeah, at the OpenSim developers meeting, it's pretty much the same opinion, is that it's not going to be possible to get that frame rate up in the current architecture. And of course, there's a lot of, there are a lot of proposals about changing, but then the discussion recently has been high fidelity has got the capability, and someone said to me that high fidelity was going to be open source, and I don't know if that's the case or not, but it's simply to keep an eye on for the VR portion.
Well, it's I'm only going on what Philip has said.
Yeah.
In interviews in public. It is actually a mixture. I gather the idea is they would like, Philip especially, would like high fidelity to be a bedrock for an open metaverse.
Mm-hmm.
But
they call them they refer themselves as open source, like all throughout all their websites.
Yeah.
Blog posts.
The thing is, they have venture capitalists involved in things, and at some point, they have to decide, and I gather they haven't decided yet, which components of this platform they will hold on to as their own monetary return, and which will be fully open source. So will it be possible to grab code and deploy your own world to connect to high fidelity using open source components? And will it maybe be the marketplace or asset servers that are controlled by high fidelity? And even if they have conventional asset servers, a lot of it is sort of peer-to-peer type connections where your world is actually on your computer and connects to goes online and connects to the network. Actually, a bit similar to the way there are regions in OpenSim that actually aren't on an OpenSim grid. They're on people's home computers or standalone computers, and their address is such that their home world, as it were, duplicates into coordinates on the OS grid.
Yeah,
and so you would sign in with a viewer that is actually viewing and running locally, and your initial environment, your home environment, would be local. But the moment you log in, it will join into the matrix of an online world, and you could then teleport or whatever you do from that space that is your own to other spaces. So it'd be a kind of halfway point. But clearly, high fidelity at some point is going to have to find a return on investment. And almost certainly that is, my guess is they're going to have to distinguish between what remains open source and what they developed as proprietary.
Yep.
And hopefully they'd come to a nice, easy balance, should we say. But it's strictly guesswork based on what I've heard Philip and Chris Collins, actually talking about, and in the roadmap, shall I say.
Yep.
Of course, it is now in open beta, so anybody can actually go in there and experiment with the systems as they exist. So at the moment, and everything is perfectly usable, but it's not, it's not a perfect completed world, if you see what I mean. And there's still a lot of work, with things they're still working on.
Well, that's good, because I'm not a perfect completed avatar.
Yes, that's the point. I don't think you can actually take your avatar from here to there, of course. But technically, you might. Right. I know there's some things I wish I had the time to try. I think, for example, if I had a mesh avatar, I could, in OpenSim, I could copy it offline and import it as my avatar in High Fidelity. So my avatar in High Fidelity would be the same as a mesh avatar in OpenSim. It's all down to the formatting of the avatar and what can be converted for what is essentially a different platform.
Yeah.
Most stuff in High Fidelity is mesh based, or it's voxels, which is like the intermediary drawing system before you come fully up to a mesh kind of thing. It's complicated, and I don't understand it either. Or not all of it anyway. I get the gist, as they say in the trade.
True. Yep.
So we'll see. I mean, ideally, I would love to be able to bring, an instance of, a Canadian region into High Fidelity, or vice versa, even if it's a worlds within worlds kind of experience. One day for sure, there'll be some kind of interoperability where virtual spaces interoperate like the hypergrid does now. We wouldn't have much of a future if we had 1,000 different companies with 1,000 walled gardens, each fighting to get your custom and not allowing you to travel. It's like uninventing the aeroplane, or maybe uninventing the boat is more appropriate. Anyway, onward and upward, or downward, depending as the case may be.
That's right.
Right, flip it again. I forget where this actually came from, but somebody's headline said, "Going to work in virtual reality will actually be pretty great. We swear." Yeah, well, that was a headline for you. I can't remember where on earth this goes, but they were examining ways in which you would go to work in virtual reality. And of course, that can mean a lot of things. It can mean you go, physically go to a workplace where you sit in your workstation, but it's actually a motorcycle helmet with a screen in it. Or it could mean that, like we often say with even Second Life and OpenSim, why go to work at all when you can simply log in on your computer and be in a space where you can actually do all the things you would normally do in the workplace, or most of them. So you can approach that from two different ways. I think this article, really was focused on VR technology and, equipping workplaces with various goggles and other things, which will be most amusing. I'd love to walk into these giant typist pools that's all open plan with about 1,000 people typing away with workstation units.
Oh, sure.
Imagine walking into one of those in the future, and all you can see were motorcycle helmets in a row. It's not a scary thought actually in some ways, but never mind. Again, if I flip it, there's been a series of articles on the technology of virtuality, and there was one during the week focusing, rounding up really, on user experience design. Believe it or not, my link to it says conclusion.
Yes,
which was suggest that my little button fired off the wrong headline or misinterpreted what the headline was or something or other. But basically, it should be called user experience design, and probably of interest to those of you who actually design things and especially interfaces and things like that. Right, and now that was followed again by Flippit, so I can't tell you where this was, but it was a fascinating little article. It was all about Atari. I don't know if you remember the name Atari. They had, they predated Sony PlayStation, and they had game consoles basically. And about the time when Nintendo first appeared. And Commodore was still around. Anyway, this article is about Atari's secret virtual reality experiments of the 1980s. And apparently behind the scenes, before they went out of business, changed ownership and then went out of business again, behind the scenes, a phenomenal amount of money was being spent on some very bizarre experiments, but many of which are actually quite pertinent today. So this is really about a piece of forgotten history, and there were some revelations in there that I thought were really quite interesting. Clearly, some of the players of that time have probably moved into positions where they're instrumental in current development. So, that's 35 years ago. Unbelievable. But, they were getting to it then. And apparently Atari themselves were convinced that virtuality was going to be the thing in the future. And this was 35 years ago. Unfortunately, they never got to the point where they actually released any consumer items to prove their point. But great history nonetheless. And talking of history, roadtovr.com on the same day, it's a day later, they published an article about, it's written by somebody called Fred Brooks, and it's about a speech given by somebody called Ivan Sutherland, and I really don't know enough about my tech history to tell you in detail about him, but he gave a speech in 1965. Right now, this is 50 years ago? No, more than 50 years ago, about his design for something called an ultimate display. And guess what? In 1965, this was talking virtuality in effect too, because the ultimate display was not a screen in front of you; it was a screen around you. One way or another. So 2 history articles in 1 week, which both really prove that 35 years ago in one case and 50 years ago in the other, people are already thinking in the direction that we're only sort of getting, newly excited about now. Everything old is new again, as they say. But we have higher power processors to go with it, even if they don't give us the required frames per second to bring OpenSim into the helmet.
Yeah, it's stunning from that standpoint to have the vision, but we're still trying to get to the fulfillment of the vision.
We're still trying to reach the end of the road, yeah. Exactly. It's almost like an endless road that's there, and every 10 years something new will pop up and say, I wonder if we can fit in the road, and if it doesn't work, they drop off the road and wait for another incremental upgrade. But that's the way it works, I guess. Eventually there'll be failures and they won't work. But I think this time we're moving into a whole realm of 3D experience that is going to work quite clearly. It's not that everybody will be able to jump on it in any ubiquitous way yet, so to speak. Anyway, onward and upward. I will say it again. Infinitus Prime. Again, this is roadtovr.com link. Infinitus Prime is an enterprise-focused VR headset with 5K horizontal resolution. This is an announcement. You would have to read the article. Maybe Maria knows more about this. It's pitched for the enterprise, not for consumers. And I think it has a quite wide field of view. But when I was reading on it, I didn't think from the description, it didn't seem to offer anything that the consumer things aren't offering.
Which one is this?
It's called Infinitus Prime.
I haven't even heard of this.
The article actually has a picture of it. I'll take a risk here and open the page so that we can look a bit further on it. There is actually a photograph of the article, which is hopefully loading now. Yep. It looks slightly smaller than the Oculus type stuff. The photograph doesn't have a hand to give you a sense of size, but I think it's as wide as an Oculus.
It seems wider. It seems like it extends quite a bit beyond the viewpiece.
But it is slightly narrower from what I gather,
It's
in that it obviously covers the eyes, but it's not quite as much of a helmet sort of thing.
yeah, it looks like some of the other two display headsets like Star VR.
Yeah.
And the Road to VR article says that it's an enterprise focused headset.
Yep.
Yeah. That's that's what I saw.
Mhm.
I just wondered. I feel like I haven't seen that shape of headset before, the model, but it doesn't seem to be offering everything new that makes it especially anything new that might indicate is maybe it would be the price point that means only the enterprise can afford it. I don't know. But very strange. It seems to be the sort of thing that would equally could be pitched to a consumer market as well. Anyway, there's a little review of it there, and at the bottom of the article is a slideshow with 12 different pictures of it, none of which I think contain a hand for you to measure its actual size, but it does have two built-in reasonably high-resolution screens, so it's a kind of you don't need to plug your smartphone into it basically. It's all down to the contraption itself. So now I've got to find my way out of this, back to the feed. There we go. Easy peasy when you see the X button. Right. And that's followed by a YouTube watch. That may be the Jim Perbrick one where it's missed the headline, I forget. By moving up above that, 4 days ago now, virtual reality will revolutionize media content, but VR headsets need to evolve. Well, I think we can. This was a discussion. Was this a Voices? No, I think this was a discussion panel at one of the events recently. We've been saying that all along, really. It's great to see Oculus and all these things coming along and cardboard, but for virtuality to really take off, there needs to be something ubiquitous, easy to use, and fairly consistent. That will be able to interpret all the different media content that people are bringing online. We're halfway there, and we've got lots of component parts. There is no final ubiquitous solution yet, or choice of solutions. And I think that's really what they're saying. They can imagine all sorts of media content that is going to be wow with VR, but we need to get the VR headset sorted before we can really consider the serious content. Right, the IC camera, EYSE, shows friends what you're doing in virtual reality. I mean, everybody has got a take and a gadget now. Yeah. This actually got a bit of traction in blogs and news feeds all over the place. I can't remember. This was a Flip It link. I'm actually I'm going to open it just so we can talk a bit about it.
Well, yeah, and this is a subject dear to you also.
Yeah, this is at TheVerge.com. The Verge, VERGE, and The Verge is all one word.com. And this actually, whatever you think about it, this looks like a bit of an alien because the glasses are kind of, instead of flat glasses lens, you've got these sort of other bubbles that are popping out where your eyes will be on the headset. So it's going to make you look a bit like a 1950s movie Alien, which makes a change from the strange helmets people are wearing at the moment. Why not? Why not have bubbles on the eyes? Anyway, I think the idea is that it's going to cost about $400. And if you order it as an early bird, you can still order it at $300. But of course, nobody's seen one yet. And it's supposed to be a pleasant experience. They have a promotional video showing a grandma putting these on to visit her grandson's birthday party from afar. And it projects scenery from the destination, as it were, out into the glasses. And I suspect this is, I'm trying to imagine a one-to-one call kind of thing, or family-to-family call on Skype. But instead of seeing a picture of somebody at the end, you're actually seeing a kind of virtual environment with them in it. But if you want to visit your grandson's birthday party, presumably you want more of an augmented reality because you want to see your grandson. If you see what I mean, not a virtual recreation. So I'm not entirely sure exactly what they're up to in terms of a demographic. Nothing here is ultimately clear about whether it's focused on augmentation or actual virtuality.
Well, and
But
I think there's a problem in the title too. I read it, the English of the title. I read it as show friends what you're doing while you're in virtual reality, and I think it means show friends what you are doing using virtual reality.
yeah.
So let's clarify that.
Yeah, I see what you mean. No, this is not
Yeah.
a camera. It's not like a camera we use to show people our silly faces broadcasting
Right.
that are equally, no, totally unsilly chat. Right. Yeah. I wonder what you meant when you said just up your street.
Because the idea of
must say,
sharing, of
yeah,
participating as a viewer, as a spectator. But
I must say, I really do like the picture here, though. It shows a nice sort of slick, base stand with a cable coming out of it that looks a bit like the turntable of a microwave, but smaller. And it shows this sort of very bubbly-eyed, goggly thing sitting
yeah,
on top of it, which presumably you just lift up and put on. It looks rather good, but the article doesn't really explain a great deal, about the way it works. It's simply this thing that will do that without telling you, how it would do. And oh yeah, they're making the reviewer makes a point here that $400, $399, says it's pretty expensive for something being marketed as a toy. Which is a truism if I ever heard one. Apparently, the marketing focus on this is, for kids, almost like a toy. So I guess it's no more expensive than the PlayStation, but is it going to be enduring enough to replace your PlayStation? I really don't know. But anyway, that's called ICEYSE, as in I can see, sort of thing. Okay. Enough of that. Someday, virtuality will be entertaining. But it is useful right now. I've got to open this too. I've got to open this to recall where it came from. Oh, this is from a site called entrepreneur.com. If you don't know how to spell entrepreneur, look it up in the dictionary because I'm not going to read it out. Entrepreneur.com. Here we go. And they've got an article on virtuality by Chris Savage, who's the CEO of Wistia and founder. And yeah, we're at the dawn of the blah, 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 and these things are coming online, blah, 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 and we've watched Oculus Toybox demo, blah, 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 and whatever. This clearly is an article for presumably entrepreneurs who read a magazine like entrepreneur.com, saying how VR is a key thing, and gives examples, visualization in manufacturing. And I think this reiterates mostly, I mean, it is a good read, especially for the layman, so to speak. I think this does reiterate things we've been talking about for years, even before OpenSim existed here in Second Life, the presence and how, your team can meet in one room from all over the world and you can collaborate and do things. And, you don't have to pay for your whole team's plane tickets and housing for a week and stuff like that. So, these are arguments that have been made about Second Life when Second Life was really the only thing. And, it's had an impact. And on other levels, it hasn't. It's maybe the move to VR will, with all this new technology, will actually make people wake up and realize, oh gosh, it could replace the aeroplanes, couldn't it? Or it could replace the plane times wasted. Okay.
Video conferencing was supposed to do the same thing, but instead what it did was that it increased the number of connections we have to people located elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so the percentage of meetings we were holding face-to-face dropped a little bit, but the number of total meetings went up. So we're still traveling because there's some stuff that people still feel that they need to do face-to-face. especially like the highest value contracts and bonding and networking and stuff like that. And traveling to somebody's location is a painful process that actually demonstrates how much you value them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've always thought, back from before this technology was on the horizon, you could just be doing something very clerical, secretarial or something, and there was no reason you couldn't work at home on a terminal or a computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, the feeling was you should always actually go into work once a week, so you did have the water cooler, that connection. Between a team that you couldn't get just by doing your work online and sticking it in and having the odd IM. And I think that is true. One of the drawbacks that I've read a lot about, though, with video conferencing is that it isn't actually immersive. And, I experience this, if I'm on a video call, to somebody like Tara in the evening, I've got her face and I position her under my camera and she positions me under hers. So she sees me face to face talking to her. But when you're actually in a video conference, usually it's a question of having lots of windows. And you may be looking at the person that's speaking at every given minute, but they're not seeing you looking at them because you're looking at wherever your camera, you're facing your camera. And in order to look at them, you may be turning away from looking at the camera. And apparently a lot of the eye contact thing, the video conference would supposedly, nurture is actually lost in conferences. It works in one-to-one where you can look into a camera and look at somebody. But when it comes to changing your angle of view, you lose that eye contact. And apparently, some people are actually very uncomfortable in not because they're uncomfortable on camera, but they're uncomfortable in video conferences because they get the impression, and it is only the impression, that somebody is talking to them while concentrating on something else because their face is angled the other way, if you see what I mean, because there's so many people in the conference. I mean, with a VR video conference, it could possibly be a bit more like a round table where your camera and your view would turn at the same time and you turn to face the person that you're talking to on video, and that would probably compensate for the problem with video conferences at the moment. And then maybe that's another plus point for VR. But the way video conferences are run at the moment, apparently there are great difficulty, in keeping people's attention and conveying the fact that you're talking to them rather than talking to something off camera. Anyway, bystand.
Maria, do you have a chance to do much video conference with your work?
Yeah. Well, I get a lot of webinars and stuff, and those are usually like unidirectional, so they come from one person to me, and my questions are usually like put in a queue with other journalists and analysts. And there's a couple of groups we do video conferencing, like Skype video, like Women in VR. We often do Skype video chats, or the OSCC organizing committee. We often did Skype video chats for meetings, which I found just fine. And I often do one-to-one video calls as well. And again, those are just fine. They do not replace personal contact, but they definitely would like maybe lower the percentage of times where I would go meet people personally. So they definitely have their role. There's certainly a lot of it. It doesn't decrease the amount of people traveling.
Yeah.
If anything, it makes the world a little smaller, so we're more likely to travel, I think. So those two are like separate things. Basically you travel based on your travel budget. Whatever your travel budget is, that is how much you travel. And for everything else, you do email, mail, video conferences, whatever, Skype / well, whatever thing that you're using for collaboration.
Right, right. It's interesting because once again, it's another thing where I think people will focus on the technology, and so we've got to make the technology more immersive, more immediate. But it's such an issue of individual attitude, and with the right people who establish a relationship through a video conference, I can have a very immersive conversation, and it does involve simple things like positioning the window near the camera so that you can create an eye line, and but I speak regularly with people in New York and California, and I would never make flights for personal reasons to have those conversations, and they work quite well. So there's a lot of attitude that doesn't really depend on the technology. When the technology fails, then it definitely breaks things up. But it's.
I think you're quite right there. Actually, I mean, I cited what I've heard of arguments about video conferencing, but I'm used to having not all the while, not very often, in fact, but multiple people on video, and you understand why they're turning away, and you make witticisms like, your ear was just talking very funnily,
Yeah, yeah.
because but it's a joke because everybody knows that you can't look at 5 places at once, but I'm talking about for people who maybe aren't really au fait with what they're doing and just find, the fact that somebody's not looking directly at them. But, you're right. At the end of the day, it's understanding what you're doing and your attitude to it. If there's a flaw, laugh at it,
Yeah, if you're going to make an investment in it, then you'll do it.
Yeah, don't make a drama out of the flaw. Just laugh at it and say, well, we'll get there one day.
Right.
Which we will. VR, la, la, la.
La, la.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Right. I seem to have this one down twice on my list. roadtovr.com. Open versus closed metaverse. Project Sansar and the new experiential age. Now, this was a piece at roadtovr.com. And they've been talking to Philip and Go about Sansar, but the feature, actually, hang on. I think this might have been, I'm sorry. This was actually, although it's at roadtovr.com too, this was actually a Voices of VR podcast from the week. And it had Abby Linden, the CEO of Linden Lab, on it. Which is where the Project Sansar comes in. But what was interesting about the podcast was that, I forget the name of the guy, Ed By or somebody who hosts it. He was actually tackling Ebe on the open metaverse and the future of an open metaverse. So although Ebe was talking about Project Sansar on the one hand and a bit about Second Life, the questioner was actually trying to get his thoughts on the concept of the open metaverse. He didn't mention things like OpenSim or Hypergrid. I'm not sure the interviewer may not even be aware and put them in the question. But, he was certainly focused on the concept of an open metaverse. And Ebe, it was actually, he didn't say anything too profound, but he was addressing those issues. You got the feeling that one part of the interview was him talking personally, and the other half of the interview was him talking as the CEO of Linden Labs. And that the CEO of Linden Labs was all about his walled gardens, and talking personally was a bit more visionary, conflicting interest almost. But very interesting interview. It's about an hour long, so it gets into the meat of things. And it was roadtovr.com do actually automatically publish embed codes of Voices of VR podcasts every time now, so it's pot luck there. I obviously linked to Road to VR instead of the podcast direct. Right, Google shows HTC Vive running at 90 frames per second in Chrome. This is the Chrome browser, and it was using WebVR, the web authoring layer for VR, and 90 frames per second. Obviously, HTC Vive will probably have had no problem with that, but I think the achievement there was they got 90 frames per second in a browser with WebVR. And to be honest, my experience with Chrome is it's a very slow, clunky browser. I used to love it when it first came out, but now it's got so many extensions, it just drags me down. So I'm pretty amazed. But presumably with the right kit and everything else, you can actually get web VR running at 90 frames a second, which isn't half bad. We're now talking about the right kind of frame rate for headsets like Vive. So there you go.
And as I recall, that was a proof of concept. It's not in the Chrome core code yet. But
no, they've actually showed it running. They've got it going. Yes, it's not. You can't go into your Chrome browser right now and switch on a web VR interpreter that runs at 90 frames per second. Yep. Even if it did, there's probably nothing to see. Well, there's probably experiments somewhere in Google Labs or even at the web VR people, but. Right, flip it. Again, I don't know where this goes. I'm not even going to bother checking. It's just a curious article, really. Low-cost headsets are boosting virtual reality's lab appeal. We go on about Google Cardboard and all this being, really, low-price entry points to what is still a fairly convincing VR. And this really is, when they talk about virtual reality's lab appeal, they're talking about people in laboratories, scientists and analysts and things using it in their workplace, and the fact that there are these things that can be got for low cost. You can add the kit out a lab, and I imagine scientists who are working with complex visual data on the screen are obviously going to be gained by being able to use tactile input to move data around to study it. Just as in platforms like OpenSim and Second Life, they meant the end of the bar chart, because the bar chart was always a vertical figures and horizontal figures. It was two sets of figures, and it represented, a graph or bar chart of data. But the moment you transpose that to 3D, you've got a whole new axis that contain a whole new set of data. So you can have three data axes, and you no longer have a bar chart as you see it on paper. You have a bar chart in 3D that can take all sorts of directions along the extra axis. And obviously scientists and people in labs can obviously get more infinite visual data out of three axes than they can out of, standard 2D axes. Anyway, more, isn't VR wonderful? Yes, of course, don't forget you can do that too. Right, investing in virtual reality, small business tips. Not quite sure where that came from. Again, it's Five Flip It. It's on the stream of news. 22 virtual reality headsets you can buy today. I'm sure Maria has done this quite a few times herself, but it's in another one of these articles that contains photographs of various virtual reality headsets and the price and where you can buy them today as opposed to in the future. Interesting news. Google this week started saying its cardboard VR viewer outside the USA, and one of the places it's selling it now is here in Britain. The price I think they're charging, it's not a phenomenal pound, but I think it's about £18, which is still the Google Cardboard. A piece of fold-out cardboard with a couple of lenses, and £18 seems rather a lot of money for something that you can get for $5 on eBay or something.
It is.
Anyway,
it is a lot of money.
Yeah.
I do not recommend that anybody spend $15 for a piece of cardboard when you can spend that $15 on like more than a dozen really nice headsets that are quite a bit more solid.
Yeah, and it's not $15; it's £18, which is closer to $30.
Oh, jeez.
That's makes no sense. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I presume it's just there, but they're providing a healthy markup for the shops that are going to be selling it. But I don't know. Cardboard is cardboard. Despite the lenses. Anyway, we've now got cardboard in the UK, so I'm going to enjoy walking down the street, seeing people with their smartphones strapped to their eyes instead of the ears. or held to the eyes instead of the ears. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. It might not even take off here. Who knows? Right. Next up. This is a YouTube by the look of it. Oh yes, yes. There was an article I think at Road to VR or Upload VR about this too. But I've just got the link to the YouTube. Project Alice, it's called. Tracks real objects to enhance multi-user VR experiences. The video kind of gives you the idea. People are wearing their headsets, and they obviously can't see the objects in front of them, but the Project Alice software is allowing them to see them virtually. So there is an accuracy. You know, they can pick up a ball, even though the headset is preventing them seeing it. There's not an augmented reality, you know, so you can see through to the ball. There is actually a virtual reality replica of the ball existing in virtual space in exactly the same place as the real world. And I know Dratz the Dupre, who does the Dratz Files here in Second Life. He has a sort of podcast. I know he was actually at a demonstration where they showed this off, and apparently, you know, it was one of these conferences or trade shows. And according to Joe Yardley, you couldn't get him out of it. He stopped paying attention to all the rest of the stuff and was fascinated by this Project Alice. So there must be something pretty compelling about it. And my link just goes to a YouTube video showing you what it's all about. Quite a short video, but it gets the point across. Now, many of you watch this show will know remember Pet Love Pet Shop. She's been on the show a few times, but she used to be our camera operator here, especially when we did it in Second Life. She's actually got an 8-part video up this week, which is basically a long discussion with another old friend of the channel here, a chap called Will Burns. Basically talking about the virtual reality discussed the real virtual, and it was a class, and there are 8 parts of this, and all 8 parts have been filmed and put online by Pet Love Pet Shop, and it's an educational sort of event. But Will is sort of just going really right through the whole gamut of all sorts of interesting things related to virtuality and scaling and progress. He's another one who is agreeing with Jim Herbert, really, that, you know, scaling something like Second Life or OpenSim to work, you know, with frame rates and everything else like that is just not possible. He's kind of, he's one of these chaps, if you remember him on this show, you know, he's pretty much on the ball. With a lot of stuff. He's so much on the board. In fact, he can get very argumentative, as you probably also remember. But it's an Essence series anyway, and they're about 10 minutes each part. So I think you've got a good, you know, it's probably about 90 minutes in all if you watch all the videos together, and very worthy watch. And I put them in this feed because they are generic. You know, they're not. I think they were filmed in Second Life. That's where the class was, but. You know, they do cover a lot of stuff. Right, moving up, 3 days. Opinion, the Quietus essay. This is funny. It's a site called Quietus, Quietus, and I bookmarked this link, and ever since that, I've been getting every post from that site coming through my RSS feeds. They've been hijacking me. They're quite interesting. Anyway, this was Opinion, the Quietus essay. Will it even be called music? And in fact, I'm opening a link here because it's from Flipit. If I actually open the link, I can give you the full address. Right, the site is called thequietus.com. That's TheQuietus.com. And it's one of these irritating sites that gives me an advert before I can start reading. Go away. Right. And it's small print, so I need to enlarge it, don't I? Right, virtuality has been hailed as the future of entertainment since back in the 80s. In 2016, however, it's finally coming of age, blah, blah, blah. And bringing with it the tantalizing ideas of how we might consume music in the future, thanks to forward-looking indie artists like Ash Kushkar and Bjorg. And it's not about them particularly. It's really a discussion analysis of where music could be going. And Well, you'd have to read it. You have to read it at thequietest.com. It is specifically aimed at people involved with music, but you've got to remember that in this context, I would include what I call conceptual soundscaping in the context of music here. You look at instrumental music, for example, used in films and things like that. It's often composed to be contextual, to move with the film and things like that. And a lot of sound elements that can be used in virtual reality are contextual too, in that, you move forward, you hear towards some trees and you hear birds, and yet you move backwards towards the coast and you hear waves on the beach. And the sound isn't just there, it is in context to the direction you're moving and things. And obviously, some of the more innovative musical artists, the kind of artists that innovated when music video was new by combining images with their pictures, are now trying to innovate something using VR technologies that, is how should I say, an annex to the actual music, an enhancement to the music, other than some kind of new way of composing the music. But there are other things coming along. There's an interesting app on the iPad at the moment. They've I think it costs about $30. The original Moog synthesizer. You remember this, James, from your Keith Emerson tribute?
Oh yeah.
Some weeks ago, we even had one at Rest, although it was in the other place, I believe, not here. Basically, they've released that now to the iPad. It's a total recreation of the original Moog synthesizer with its whatever number. And it's got patches in it. You can buy other patches, but there are lots of somewhat getting on these days elderly musicians who pioneered on the Moog and who have been demonstrating doing the same thing using the iPad version. And apparently the tonal qualities, what you can do, is as good, if not better, than the original great big pieces of hardware. And this is pure electronic kind of composition. It does come with a keyboard and can attach a keyboard, but the way the Moog synthesizer works is you literally pulled out wires and plugged in wires and you programmed pitches and styles of music, or in some cases maybe it wasn't even music, it was just sound to get the effect you wanted. And apart from that, there are some similar things, apps being made for VR at the moment for musicians that are trying to come up with new interfaces for musicians where I don't know if any of you remember, it was on one of the old Beach Boys songs, the theremin that goes yeah, all those noises. And this was simply a stick, and it registered where your hand was through electricity and created a tone. And now they're comparing virtual reality like this. You can imagine you've got objects, that create and make interactive noises in a virtual environment. And you can create music just by doing what a conductor of an orchestra does. You can conduct it and you hold your wand across various things to create the wall of sound you want, as it were. So, it's quite possible we are going to see musicians moving from electronic keyboards into purely virtual instruments that are very light synthesizers in a way that will allow them to create whole new audio experiences for us over and beyond, the sounds we are used to. You only have to think back to that Beach Boys record, to be honest, to realize what a change it made to everything. The other instances of that being used down the years, but I think I'm prepared to bet that half the people that bought that record didn't just buy it because of, I forget which one it was it Good Vibrations? I think it was. Yeah, probably half of them bought it because they just couldn't believe this noise, Oh, well, that is not, by the way, a true virtual rendition of the noise I'm talking about, but it's a close approximation, according to the mouth of Mal Burns.
Good.
But you get the idea. So if you're at all interested in music, and very interesting article to read if you want to follow that link. Obviously, all these articles go into greater depth. voicesvr.com, the podcast again, program 361 a couple of days ago. Was an interview and discussion about virtual reality healthcare applications and the digital health revolution. And coming near to the top here. Right, something. Oh, this was interesting. I owned on this and I put it in there because this could be very important for inputs like leap motions or whatever in terms of virtuality. It's something called tap strap, TAE as in tapping on something, and strap as in strapping something on your wrist, which is very similar. It's a wearable keyboard, and it basically slips on like a glove, but without the fingers. Rests near at your wrist by the look of it. And it uses gestures to allow you to type on any surface. So instead of needing a keyboard, you simply wear this thing and you just type on any old surface that's lying around. It requires some training because, you've got to obviously know where to tap to get to letters. Apparently it works very similar to these things like swipe. I believe they're called swipe keyboards on the iPad or Android, where it predicts where you want to go. So apparently each finger corresponds to a vowel, and how you move your fingers, it automatically learns which consonants you want to put between the vowels. And it does it all by gesture and learning, and it's simply a thing that you've got on your hand. It doesn't even obstruct your fingers because it all works with sensors. And obviously, maybe this is the future of the world for typists. I don't know. But I immediately thought of this in the context of, we often talk about you're wearing an Oculus Rift. You can't see your keyboard, right? But if you have a new type of keyboard, which works with gestures and doesn't require you to be able to see the keyboard, but is like with leap motion, it's responding to your gestures, then you've immediately got a device that could be paired with something like an Oculus to provide a keyboard. It's got a learning curve for sure, but, it's an input device that may well fit into what I call the virtuality equation as we move aimlessly towards ubiquity. So I thought that was quite an interesting read anyway. So news about that is courtesy of the link there. Voicesofvr.com again. This hasn't got a show number. This was an episode yesterday on the future of VR on the open web, WebVR, WebGL2, and WebAssembly. It's basically looking at the languages and systems by which VR can be authored and created to exist on a HTML5 web page, basically. And I'm very keen on that, if only to create the window to my world. Pinks in the Afterlife.blogspot.com was Thursday Embers roundup of the safari this week. A hearty safari. There you go. The fitting title. And I can't remember where we went. It's been a busy week at the end of the week, but that was a good one. Oh yes, it was largely a visit to art exhibits rather than anything else. Yeah,
the money exhibit, the currency, and then
it's quite interesting. There was an interesting, as James says, currency exhibit. It wasn't really. Well, it was kind of a visual essay on currency, but it actually did require that you play videos, which did not play in HTML properly. Maybe they needed Flash or QuickTime, but they wouldn't play for me. But there were also links to websites and things, and the artist described the installation as a kind of hub where all the threads were going out to things on the web and whatever. And I actually got I was actually overboard because. The first visit, and I have to mention this actually, because now I've remembered, I'm bouncing up and down with joy. The first visit was actually to a region that is owned by a chap called Spiral Silverstar on DigiWorlds, and he's divided into four: a quarter for himself and the other 3 quarters for some other artist friends. Who Betty Trureau and whose work you can't fail to recognise, and a couple of others anyway. And they're actually better known as Second Life artists. And Spiral basically rents a region and is given land to the other four. Great exhibit, actually, from all of them. But Spiral's work is just fantastic. He specializes in fractals. Type things, but he has actually created some astonishingly realistic animated textures using fractals that have the effect of your old kid kaleidoscope, but they're fractals instead of just triangle tiles, and they are moving really smoothly and really fast. So they're better than the hypergate effect. They're just a kaleidoscope in front of you. You almost want to jump in, and I'm trying to get him get him to bring one over here or out to Canada. So it's a round one that I would just love to have as a dance floor, get it scaled up. I was amazed by this stuff. And I was drooling after them. Unless you're actually a resident of DigiWorlds and have DigiWorld's version of Maples, you can't actually buy them. But if you have got some DigiWorld Maples, they're bloody cheap. They're only 10 Maples for they're just great. 10 Maples each. It's absolutely nothing. But I couldn't use my Canada Maples to get them. But I've been a fan of Spirals for a long while, but I actually know him. I hope to get him on the show, actually, but I know him better. I know him better as a machinima maker. Joe, somebody his second name is, and as a judge on the now defunct a long series of University of Western Australia machinima contests. I forget how many times he won. But, when I was judging, I had to choose my top 10 of 60 or something. I think there was rarely an occasion when he wouldn't have been in my top 10. And I'm sure I voted him number one on a couple of occasions. So he was deservedly winning, getting prizes in those competitions because his machinima was outstanding. It was professional. It was well edited, everything else. But it retained all the qualities that you expect of an artist as opposed to a commercial filmmaker, and he just combined everything so well.
Yes.
Yeah, he's got what I might call the aesthetic eye, even though what he says and is trying to do is not focused solely on the aesthetic. He somehow gets them both right. So great stuff. And I'd love to get him on the show because I think he'll be a great person to talk to from Second Life through to the open metaverse where he's now focusing. And he has promised me, I was talking to him, he has promised me that more machinima are en route and they will be filmed on the hypergrid, not in Second Life anymore. So there we go. Right. Where was I? Right. One day ago. We're getting there slowly, folks. Maria's falling asleep or desperately waiting. Right, Axon VR, AXON VR is making a haptic exoskeleton suit to bring your mind and body into VR. You can find this article at roadtovr.com again. Now, I'm all for ubiquity and ease of use, and I've got to admit, before I even knew of virtual worlds, and or at least as we currently know them, and I was thinking in terms of science fiction, just computer interfaces, I always have visions of, I think many people probably did, of a future where we all wore lycra bodysuits, which had little patches on them that determined where our body was and would pick up all our real life gestures, not so much to interact in VR, but just to interface with the computer. In other words, I want to swipe a page, or I want to pull to open something, or I may want to stand up and walk around a bit. Obviously, with virtual reality and virtual worlds, the prospect of that is almost enhanced. But we haven't gone that way. We tend to have gone for, little parts of an equation rather than bodysuits. Lycra is also notoriously difficult to get your skin to breathe through, but there are fabrics that can do it. This company, Axon VR, in fact, I'm going to open the page here now so I can see the picture a bit better because I'm describing it from this, seems to combine that idea with the more modern, implements too. And the thing I'm not so keen about this is the exoskeleton idea, because the something that is a suit that has these nodes on it that allows it to track your movements and stuff like that is one thing, but the suggestion here seems to be that there will be physical components. I think we had something similar last week where somebody was published a photograph of something that made you look like the Terminator, where your leg was there, but there was also a metal leg too. And, yeah. So I'm not going to go into virtual reality or anywhere else wearing that plastic contraption. I look like an android robot. This seems to be a whole mixture of all sorts of stuff. The Axon suit is delivering a full body haptic suit with some sort of smart textile that marries pneumatic actuators with a reactive thermal layer. Yes. You better read it, because I'm not going to read all that stuff out to you. Early haptic prototypes are still bulky and inflexible, blah, blah, blah. But there's also, involved with the same thing, there is an exoskeleton platform separate from the suit, which you will also stand on. In other words, it's like Mirror can help me here, the round treadmill thing.
The omnidirectional treadmill from Virtuix.
Yeah, and there's a companion seat, and there's a companion what looks like a podium. So you have this rather clunky looking, certainly not thin lycra suit on, plus you have an optional seat that you can sit on, and all this. You then go on to the circular thingamajig and apparently stand in front of a podium, although the podium may be additional controls. It's they're in Seattle. And they are a startup fresh out of a 4-year stint in stealth mode. Not surprisingly, really. I read the article. These things are not implausible. This is not like strapping yourself into a gigantic, robot that is, lumbering huge crates around or something like in, was it Alien or something? I do actually see this as plausible, but I don't really see why you would need, the Axon suit and the Axon treader and the Axon chair and the Axon podium and all the rest of it. A 4-piece thing, all of which 3 pieces of furniture and the other pieces of full body suit. It just seems a bit like overkill. I think we're going to be able to come up with something far more reasonable and easy to use than this. And the ease of use, you see, is half the equation. You're not going to sell virtual reality to people that got to buy all this kit. You've got to be selling them virtual reality as an experience and making the kit as easy and cheap as possible. Dear. It's one of those days. Here. I am going to get to the end of this feed. I promise, sometime. I'm just sort of working upwards, and the iPad windows don't seem to want to close anymore. It seems to think I want to post now. Here we go. Right, okay, we are getting the Marvel headset, nothing to do with Marvel Comics or the movie franchise, but the Marvel headset is an early attempt at a VR operating system for your phone. It's a headset, it plugs into your phone, and the idea is it will be an operating system for a phone as opposed to like an alternative to Android or Chrome or iOS. You will literally wear the headset and operate your phone from an interface that's in the headset. Curious move, but obviously they're using a keyword here. VR operating system for your phone. VR being the key word, I guess. Yes, another. It could work. It could work. A lot of people make phone calls hands-free. So then their hands are free to do other things. So maybe there is something in this. I don't think I'd trust a driver wearing one, but there you go. Android VR has finally been confirmed by Google's developer site, and apparently on the is it the 28th, a couple of days' time at the Google I/O conference, all will be revealed. Apparently it involves a new headset that isn't cardboard and is untethered. No, hang on, what am I talking about? Yeah, Apparently,
no smartphone. No smartphone involved.
You don't need a smartphone, so everything you will need is in the headset. And I presume if they want to sell it, they won't actually make this one out of actual cardboard. But they are clearly on the verge of bringing something out midweek at the developers conference. And oh yeah, actually, I'm just going to scroll up here because there was some other news this morning. Oh God, I've got a few to go. Yeah, right. The news this morning is that Google's enterprise app chief has been moved from his position to run the VR business, and some clever dick was saying, I forget his name, but the headline was something like "Fred Blogs moves from virtualization to virtual worlds." Implying that virtualization is as in the non-virtual world reference in the virtualized apps. So yeah, they've also moved their enterprise chief, top-notch person, over to the VR side to get it up and running. So no doubt we'll hear more about that in a week too. Right, down we go again. Virtual Reality 2016, the top 100 influencers and brands. Okay, I'm just going to click on that to find out where it's going to. It's going to a site called onalytic.com, Onalytica. And it appears to have been written or researched by somebody called Joe Fields. Basically looks at what they perceive to be the top 100 influencers in the field and the actual brands and revenue forecasts and stuff like that. And it's no hypergrid business, but if you read hypergrid business for that kind of thing, you might be interested in this. Statistics and ideas there. $130. Oculus clones from China are already here. This is a look at the invasion of Chinese-made things that look like Oculuses and the other motorcycle headsets, and are considerably cheaper and apparently not that particularly inferior. So China moves quickly on manufacturing clones of these things. Crytek, the Crytek engine is very popular in games and some standalone virtual worlds. Crytek is opening 6 more virtual reality labs through VR First. Basically, the people that make the Crytek engine are expanding rapidly, and they're opening 3 new virtual reality labs. How side-mounted LEDs can help fix VR's tunnel vision and nausea problems. Technical thing for those of you interested in these headsets and stuff. There's an example which shows LEDs are those little tiny sort of lights that you get a USB light, and the little blue light that comes off it is LED. They don't have to be blue. They're a particular kind of light. Apparently, some of the nausea we experience with the tunnel vision and things with some VR headsets can actually be diffused somehow by tiny little LED lights on the left and right of your eye outside of the field of view. And I'm not quite sure how it works, but apparently it's proven to counteract some of the nausea problems people get when they're wearing these certain kinds of headsets. So interesting one there. Yeah. Stanford University Professor Jeremy Bailenson studies human behavior effects of virtual reality. Indeed. And Stanford University clearly liked the fact that I tweeted them because they were all over the place tweeting my tweet. Which I thought was rather, I don't know why, I just thought it was amusing. I was getting all these messages in my DMs and stuff saying Stanford University, thank you for this, has retweeted that. I was rather amused.
Interesting.
Because normally I would expect those things from VR followers, not Stanford University. But never mind, they must have had an engine looking for their own name. Right. Yeah, good article anyway, academic. Oh, right, now I've got 1, 2, 3 from Maria, so I'll let her do them. And finally, 2 hours ago, Acer, the machine I'm talking on now actually is an Acer machine, as is the keyboard, as is the monitor. They're a very popular maker of consumer computer hardware. They have partnered with a company called Starbreeze to design and manufacture, guess what? A VR headset.
Yay.
Now, why isn't that a great idea? Now, Starbreeze apparently actually have a headset called Star VR. No, I think that actually already exists. Basically, what's happened.
We mentioned it earlier today. It's one of those extra wide 2-screen headsets that Infinite Plus thing is going to compete with.
Right.
It's almost exactly the same. It's just really, really super wide.
Right. Well, apparently Acer, the computer manufacturer, has partnered with Starbreeze for designing and manufacturing these things. And if I know Acer, they'll partner with a monitor maker, and before you know it, those will be Acer monitors. You'll be buying off-the-shelf computers from Acer, and presumably the Star VR headset will be like the mouse and keyboard. It will come with it. They don't say that, but that's the sort of thing I imagine when I see somebody like Acer partnering. Maybe wrong, but anyway, quite important sort of industry news that.
Well, it's interesting too because Acer a week ago or so announced that they were going to work with the OSVR people, the open source virtual reality group, and they were going to start manufacturing hardware. But this is something way beyond a consumer level product. It looks like.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Acer's moving.
If they're working on the systems to run VR, OSVR, and also interested in headsets, and they're making computers, offering an all-in-one package on the top shelves of PC World or Walmart or wherever you got in America. I mean,
right.
It does make sense. You usually, when you buy an all-in-one kit from one manufacturer off the shelf, you're normally writing off the cost of at least one of the components, because you're getting an all-in-one package. So it could well play well to have their brand name as known as, a range of VR computers, their latest models. They'll up the processor speeds, they'll up the graphics to the right frames per minute or whatever, and it will come with the headsets and come with open source VR software or something. Who knows? Down the road. Anyway, no, my last item is about Google's enterprise chief moving to run its VR thing, which I actually skipped and ran up to earlier. So that's it from me. Finally, Maria, you can have the microphone for your news.
All right. Okay. So so this week I've been collecting the data for the monthly report, which is going to be coming out probably this evening or maybe tomorrow evening, whenever I get a chance to add up all the numbers. Right now it looks like we've lost some regions on Metropolis grid, maybe due to a cleanup. Other grids are pretty much gaining. So we'll see how that goes. The other OpenSim news is with the Kitely market. They hit all new highs. Since they've been going up and up and up, they've been hitting new highs like every month. So this isn't a particularly jaw-dropping headline. And again, as before, the exportables are growing faster than non-exportables. They're now 65% of all variations, which is so the Kitely market allows every product to have multiple variations, like colors or sizes or prices or permissions. So exportability is one of the possible variations, so like 2/3 of all the variations right now are exportable. So for example, this could mean that one product is exportable and one isn't, or it could mean that the same product has both an exportable and a non-exportable version. like maybe, for example, the merchant will charge a little extra for the exportable or something like that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, some VR applications, Decorilla interior designs, has supports a VR thing. Basically, what they are is like they're a high-end interior decorating site where you work with interior decorators, and now they give you a preview of the results in VR so that you can see what it looks like before approving the final design. And the idea is that to increase sales, obviously, but also to decrease returns when customers aren't happy with what they bought when they actually see it. So that, I guess, that costs the company money, and they would like to have less of that. So
I think I remember that. Actually, I think. I mean, no harm in this, I suppose, but it surprised me for some reason. I think actually that customers of this firm actually have to pay for the VR prototyping and go through that process. And in fact, and then after it's approved, they get the actual stuff. So they're not only saving costs on one level, they're adding costs for people to use the system. But it makes sense. I presume all the furniture and the kit is seems to be from their templates anyway, so they just give you a variety of their own templates. You arrange their templates how you want it, and they double check whether it's possible and give you a VR preview. Good business.
So the How to Use OpenSim survey. I mentioned last week that we were doing it. A person in the UK won the headset, and so I sent them a Ling VR headset to the UK. So he should be getting it soon. Congratulations.
And it isn't me.
It's not you. Yes.
Family members may not apply.
Yeah, I know.
The results were pretty much in line with what we had about 2 years ago in 2013. And we had 40% of people saying they only use OpenSim for personal things, which means that 60% of people used OpenSim for work, school, development, other play kind of things.
Impersonal things.
Now, that could be a factor of the readership of Hypergood Business, not of the OpenSim community as a whole, because I don't really cover a lot of social activities and gaming activities. So I don't really cover like the musical events and all that stuff unless there's like a business story behind it. So people aren't going to come to Hypergood Business if all they do is social stuff in OpenSim. So you have to keep that in mind, that this isn't necessarily representative of OpenSim users as a whole. But everybody, more than about 2/3 of the respondents said that they use OpenSim for creative self-expression.
Yeah,
that was the single biggest thing that they used it for.
I was wondering about that because I was thinking how popular it is with artists and installations and things. Just the freedom to work and do what they want. Yeah.
So no matter why you come to OpenSim, people are playing around with building. So anybody who says that virtual world users are just consumers, no, they're not. They like to build and express themselves in VR. Maybe they're combining things that other people have created, but they're still putting their own little individual stamp and expression on their environments.
Yeah, the consumers just hang out in that other one, Second Life.
Friendly socializing is also popular with people, and followed by role playing, and then you've got creating products, virtual meetings, training and simulations, professional networking, and virtual walkthroughs and map and prototyping. So that was like overall, and then I broke them out by individual group, And and this is where you can see how different types of users use OpenSim differently. For example, educators have use it for more training and simulations than anybody else, for example. Um, and like designers are using it, designers and developers using it to create products and tools. Um, Business people have a lot of virtual meetings, conferences, and other events as well. So if you're trying to sell a grid or hosting services to a particular category of users, these are the kinds of things that they're going to be using OpenSim for. But they're also using it for other things. For example, business users are among the least likely to do role playing, but more than half will still do friendly socializing, and half are still engaging in creative self-expression. So just because you have a business audience doesn't mean that you don't give them those opportunities.
Well, I do remember here in Second Life, for example, back in the days of metanomics and things, and the days when there were actually companies in here doing things. Then they would hold an open day or conference or something like that, and they really clicked on the fact that the social side of it was big. They would have after conference dances and particle performances and things that brought the more serious business user out of hours, showing them what the platforms were capable of. So there was a great interaction there. I suppose in real life, you might go to a conference and the organizers of the conference lay on evening entertainment. It's purely social entertainment, but it's part of the idea of getting you there for immersing you in the conference, what's going on.
So check that out if you're interested in some of the details of all that. And I'm going to be running more surveys, so I will need some more survey ideas.
I've got one. Could we have a survey? Do you engage in DDoS activities?
Oh wow.
And if so, we will give you something other than a headset. So, sorry, I had to get that in. I'd really love to hear from any of you who engage in that particular activity. It's completely, I suppose it's a minority activity, but we'd be interested in finding out who you are.
There's probably a thread for that on Reddit somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah, we'll look it up and see anyway. But we'll have a suitable price for you.
All right. Yeah. So, moving on.
Still looking for topics.
Moving on. The other, for me, the other interesting news was that Oculus VR came out with some numbers about usage of the Gear VR. So the Oculus guys do the content for Samsung Gear VR. They have a partnership, and the Gear VR home space is actually called Oculus Home, and the Gear VR store is actually called the Oculus Store. So they released some numbers. They had 1 million users last month, which is excellent. The average person used it for 25 minutes a day, which is also pretty good. And they've got 250 apps. Tiny, a small amount compared to Cardboard, but still growing. The interesting things for me was that the killer app was, as I expected for mobile VR, media consumption.
Wow.
Yeah.
7 out of the top 10 apps used were video apps, And 80% of the time, people were watching videos on this headset. So, so this is the killer app for mobile VR, and it's definitely worth it. I've definitely watched videos on the Gear VR and have been pulled in, and so I stopped even noticing that I was watching in VR. It's definitely doable, and it does give you a little private theater, and they do have a lot of unique content. So they have Milk VR, which is unique to Gear VR. They have Netflix and Hulu, which are also unique to the Gear VR headset. They don't have cardboard apps out yet. So there's definitely lots of content, both traditional videos and virtual and 360-degree videos. So lots of stuff to do, lots of original documentaries and movies. So I can see why that part of it is working out well, especially since on the game side they're still lagging behind in content.
Right.
Now the other thing that is making me want to go to New York Times this summer is that The Void is coming to Times Square.
I saw your post on it. Yeah.
The Void is in Utah, near Salt Lake City, and it's a place where you go in, you put on a backpack and a headset, and you're transported to this virtual world, right? And it feels like you're actually there because it's the highest end equipment, and you could walk around inside and everything. And so they've teamed up with the people who did Ghostbusters, and they created a Ghostbusters VR experience that launches 2 weeks before the movie launches. And oh my God, I want to do that.
I was so cynical when I saw that, and I was like, after all these years, can't Hollywood come up with something other than another Ghostbusters? But never mind. Yeah, it will probably be a huge hit. Sorry, no further comment.
If I could go, if my interest in it is any indication, then yes, it will be a huge hit. So that's it for me. I'm like I said, I'm crunching some numbers right now. That's the other thing I'm working on. And remember how I told you guys that I was waiting for this headset called the Bobo VR Z4?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know.
I remember the Bobo bit, but I don't remember the Z4.
So it wasn't coming. Yeah. Finally, I realized that I confused it with a different headset. It was never going to come, so I ordered it, and it was sent to Minnesota, which is on the other side of the country, and I just got a refund for it. Now I have to start the whole thing over again.
Oh, Lord.
I know, I've been waiting for it forever.
How on earth did it get there?
I assume it's because the vendor just typed in the wrong address. It wasn't even remotely related to where I live.
Well, MN and MA, I guess. It's one stroke typo, anyway.
Maybe.
But with the zip code, it's pretty doubtful.
Pretty odd. Okay, so we're waiting. So the process starts again, and eventually we will get an on-air review from you of that.
Yes, someday my headset will come.
Yeah, or the one that headset will come. More to the point.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, anything in the news or any further comments on that lot from you, James? Before I.
The headset thing is so interesting, and I still come back. In particular the movies, watching movies and media using a head-mounted display, which in my mind I think so often that what we experience already in OpenSim and Second Life is a big part of what VR is. But there are things that completely evade me. I'd never come into OpenSim to watch a movie. And so
No.
to me, that's a real distinguishing factor of, the differences that the headset experience is going to have to just, projecting myself into an avatar and experiencing a virtual environment that way. It's fascinating to see that still be so high, and I really do need to try it sometime.
The only time I would watch in, say, Second Life, particularly a movie or video content in Second Life, is where it's on the big screen and it's a shared experience, and it's something that people, it may be subject orientated rather than entertainment, and people are talking about it as they watch it simultaneously. And there are some things I've definitely come in World to watch, possibly because they aren't available elsewhere at that time. But half the fun of it is seeing how the conversation turns as people take it in and various topics come up. But I've got to agree, the idea of just coming into Canada and going to one of the cinemas to watch probably a pirate, badly copied version of some movie doesn't really appeal to me. Even if it was Game of Thrones, I probably wouldn't be bothered, and wait for the good. Yeah,
and
but I.
Well, unless you're watching it with friends or family who are really far away, and this is your opportunity to interact with them while you watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do that personally most nights with Tara. I about 1 or 2 in the morning my time, I will load DVD or Blu-ray or something, and I will watch it on my big screen and stream it across to her at the same time. And then we will chat about it afterwards, like you do when you've watched a show together or something. So I can see, as you say there, if a group of you, maybe you're not talking while you're watching it, but you watch it together, and then you go off and like you might come out of a cinema and go for coffee and all start talking about your experience. So yeah, I can sort of see that.
And there's some things that you want to watch with other people, like maybe election returns or sports games or something like that, where you want to watch it with a group of supporters and you get that excitement of being with other people who share your feelings about whatever is happening.
I'm just thinking about in Open Simulator conferences and meetings, if a video is going to be shared, it's often, okay, well, everybody open it in your browser and then type in chat when you're done watching it. I mean, the synchronization is a challenge that way. But there's certainly times like that,
I think there's more times like that now than have been before. I can't remember when I last read the media screen in World. I'm sort of hanging on. I've got the spaces for them, but I didn't put them there.
Yeah.
And it's all to do with the fact that the recommendation is now that everybody uninstalls QuickTime and uninstalls Flash.
Right.
And half of these sites, Vimeo, YouTube are the exceptions, but half of these sites still have Flash embeds. And other people have wisely uninstalled that. And then you have Second Life's Inworld browser is now HTML5, but that browser doesn't seem to be working very well in OpenSim because it's a Second Life browser. The OpenSim version still have SL media, as it's called, and that's kind of out of date. So the media plugin we use in virtual worlds is not consistent now, and I'm loath to do anything until we arrive at a point where a media screen will show an MP4 file and it will just play it without Flash or without QuickTime and use HTML5 layer as the player.
Yeah.
And we're at that point where it is all changing, but some people are really slow to catch up to HTML5, and other people, users, are very slow to pick up on the fact that they really need to uninstall Flash and QuickTime because they're actually a security risk. So it's all in that side of the broadcasting thing is a bit up in the air at the moment. People will be watching this show. Hopefully, if anybody is watching live, they'll be watching it on a website. I don't know whether actually there may be somewhere around here in World where technically it's playing, but it would just depend on what viewer they've got and what plugins they've got on their system, whether they can actually watch it or not. So it's no longer as simple as putting up a screen. a screen will work with some and not with others. So in fact, it's worse at the moment because you almost invariably have to tell people to open up the link and exit the virtual world long enough to watch it and then close it and come back in. And it's finicky. It's pretty easy for most people to do, to click on the link, but it destroys the immersion of it.
Yep,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah. And you probably can't see the chat while you're watching it because the window's occupying your screen. Things like that. Very annoying, but I'm sure it will sort itself out ultimately as browsers evolve and stuff like that.
Let's see, and then I guess one other thing I was going to mention, I think I said early in the show that I've been attending the OpenSim developers meetings for a while, and one thing that I observed at the last meeting was that we had significant recognition for Justin when he left the OpenSim development team, and I was just wondering, to support an effort like OpenSim, would there be some way to have recognition for the active developers? And what would that appear like? What would that be like? And it's just something I've been tossing around a little bit, and thinking about how, what can we offer encouragement to the people making all this work.
Tell me, I know the one you mean. It's on
Tuesdays.
Tuesdays, isn't it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is this one? Pardon me. Is this one sort of pervasive group of developers, or is it just one of many developer meetups?
I think it's a public meeting, so it's held on the OS Grid, and it's just kind of a general touch point. I think there are many other meetings going on in different channels, but this is a one that's open to the public, so I felt comfortable attending, and I raised the idea, and people thought, that definitely could use some exploration.
Well, I think, my answer to that, off the top of my head, there may be plenty of others, right, is that you often find some obscure site somewhere, probably not even a blog, will publish a transcript that somebody's kept of the conversation, right? And, I think the way around that is to have, a proper blog or a proper site which doesn't just publish it as a transcript, they do it as a kind of roundup. Like somebody reporting on it, and they will say, the developer who's been doing so much amazing work on topic A, topic B, and C suggested to topic E that maybe they do this, and they kind of agree that will be a good thing to join forces on. So by the way, folks, they're going to be looking for more people who are interested in the merging of topic E and B to get involved in that particular strand. And so you do it like, it won't be you're not going to everybody in the public or even in OpenSim reading it, but anybody who's remotely involved in, say, programming, scripting and stuff like that, we'll keep an eye on this because they're not isolated things. The dev team, there's as much scripting involved in building the engine as there is in scripting an object in World. So there is a bit of overlap of interest. And if there was like a weekly report on what the devs have been talking about, that was serve a communication function. It would have, you get people like me to link to it. And moreover, if it was written editorially by like an observer, then names would come out of it. Sure. Maybe not all names, but say Joe Blogs has been a major contributor in a given week, then the reporter would actually point out that Joe Blogs brought this up, and Fred Blogs and Frida Blogs immediately put their hands up and said. And so you can do it as kind of reportage. Like you see a blog post from, I don't know, an Apple developers conference or something. The nitty gritty stuff will probably point out developers by name who've brought this up or contributed that or whatever. And that doesn't mean everybody's going to get mentioned, but it means that the people are getting a bit of kudos for what they're doing, and that in turn creates a viral effect where other people who may be unheard of volunteers might just do a bit more because they kind of fancy the kudos of getting their name mentioned on the report.
Sure. Yep.
That sort of addresses the idea of giving them the kudos, as it were, a little bit. I'm not sure where that's the whole solution to what you meant. I mean, it's.
Oh, that's
It's,
that's a great thought. Yeah, I'm thinking more about that. Yeah.
I mean, the extension of that, if it got really active, is for us to do, a monthly tech program where we bring people from, development teams that's on OpenSim and maybe some of the grids or something all together to discuss these things.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have that much public traction, but there's probably enough devs and people out there to, if we did it, they would listen, come sing.
Yeah, sure.
So it's another thing. I mean, I wouldn't think there's a market to do it more than once a month, but it's something if you wanted and I wanted, we could probably figure out a way to do.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be practical to sit in on one of those meetings and just film it. It wouldn't be filmable. You see what I mean?
Right.
But in terms of knowing what's going on and grabbing some of the key people to, like a round table, rounding up the month, then it will get some other listeners and maybe generate that viral interest.
Absolutely. Well, like so much in OpenSim and virtual worlds, there's just opportunity everywhere to do things.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We've yet to run out of opportunities virtually, and it's a flat Earth, a flat universe.
Yeah.
So we will never conquer all the land. We just build more on the end of it, to do more things.
That's right.
Yep, the virtual world ain't round. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it sure ain't round. I can guarantee that. Right.
It's flat. It's flat.
It's a
and
flat
you can
Earth.
fall off the edge if you're not careful.
Yeah, except actually, as I gather from Krista, if you get to the edge of a world and fall off the edge, you actually land on another level of the hypergrid, which is overlapping underneath. Because there's an upper level, middle level, and lower level of the hypergrid. That's why some of the addresses early on didn't work. You had to go to an interim point. Maria's schematic of the hypergrid is like a stacked system of worlds. Or it was when she invented it. I don't know what she changed it now. But yeah,
the reason you needed midpoint jumps was that because you could jump more than 4,000 regions in any direction, but the hypergrid was all kind of in the same kind of dimension.
Oh yeah. I think. I mean, I still had the program we filmed with Krista doing this. She was in Second Life, but she created prims representing grids, and then she flew up and put more grids, and there was the distance on the flat planet, so to speak, between the grids, which was enormous.
Are you talking about her 3D chess set model of the hypergrid?
No, it wasn't a chess set. It was just it was like a way of demonstrating to the audience.
Yeah, but you don't like 3D chess. You have multiple boards, one stacked over the other, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
In appearance.
That's how she used to. That's how she normally models the hypergrid, and how I would model the hypergrid as well. But it doesn't mean that they're physically under each other.
Okay, well, I just gathered the metaphor she seemed to be implying was that to be the infinite connection would rely on kind of up and down, left and right, or north, south, east, west, plus levels of height, and that combination could cope with just about everything. But you're right. If we conceive it as a flat Earth with every grid somewhere else on that flat Earth, then the flat plane can be endless too. I don't know. I'm actually going back in time here to before the hypergrid existed. It was just a model that Krista built for us here in Second Life at a little meeting we had.
Well, I remember, Maria, you had Hyperica upper, middle, and lower. And was that really address ranges?
Yes, that was because you couldn't jump more than 4,000 regions in any direction. That was left over from Second Life, because in Second Life you couldn't jump more than 4,000 regions in any direction because there were no regions that far apart from each other. So this was coded into the viewers. It was like a little bug, like the Y2K bug, where there weren't enough digits for the year.
Yeah.
That similar thing. They fixed it. It was a pretty quick fix. It took a while to disseminate to all the grids, and once it did, we no longer needed intermediary jump regions.
Sure.
And I took out the lower, middle, and upper everywhere, and I took out the Hyperica thing was like simplified, but down to a third of what it was before. It made life a lot easier for everybody. Now you can jump from any grid to any other grid. You might not be able to complete the jump for other reasons, but distance is no longer one of them.
Yeah.
That was just a simple distance-based bug.
I think I've just fallen into history here. Actually, I mean, it's what I suspect has happened is that there were upper, middle, and lower, and that now the jump distance has been sorted. They've all been flattened into one. That seems to be from the sound.
No, they were not flattened. They were flat to start with.
Oh, I don't understand. Okay, you can host this you can host a techie program, Maria.
Right.
I can see that this is not a program for me to host.
No, the metaphor was so strong. I physically remember going from upper to middle to lower Hyperica, thinking I was in an elevator going up and down.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's more like, imagine every grid is a pancake, and you have these pancakes on a table. And in order to jump from one end of the table to another, you had to jump to a couple of pancakes in the middle, because you could go all the way across.
Yep.
Now you can go all the way across. Now you have all these pancakes lying on the table. They're all overlapping each other. They're all kind of like in the same space. So it's really hard to tell them apart. So what you do is you have like a view, one of those expanded views that you have like technical manuals, where you pull all the pancakes apart.
Right.
So some are higher than the other. Just randomly. There's no actual order there. So you can see that they're different pancakes. But they're all still basically all pancakes all on the same table.
Yep.
It's awesome.
When is Pancake Day anyway?
Yeah, right.
What happens when you flip the pancake and it arrives upside down? No answer to that one. Is
no
there?
answer.
Right.
No,
Okay.
Nope.
Okay, it's nice to get into complex subjects where some of us make fools of us.
Maybe flipping the pancake is a DDoS attack.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. If I spot an avatar wandering around with a pancake in his hand,
Right, that's right.
Watch out, mate. I'm happy here. Okay. Okay. Well, since we're in Second Life, I switched my Twitter feed to another Twitter feed I've got, which is twitter.com/Malbones space or underscore writer, which is my avatar name here in Second Life, or traditional one anyway. And in that feed, you will find various machinima programs. We'll see Flipboard type magazines, and occasional links to art and destinations here in Second Life. I don't spend quite as much time on it as I used to, but it always amazes me how long it is at the end of the week compared with my other feed, which is more specific. So I'll just round up a few things here. Opening today, quite literally, in Second Life, is the Art Walk 2016. That's Art Walk, as in walking along. And this is at a place called Raglan Shire, which is famous because its occupants are known as Tinies. Yes, they're tiny little avatars. And they very friendly and very funny and chirpy and sort of, whatever you expect Tinies to be, I suppose. But the Art Walk is an annual event, and it's not just anything to do with their tiny avatar roleplay or that sort of stuff. It's actually a quite serious and quite big art exhibition of various kinds of arts, and it's all laid out like a bit of a fairy tale walk. I don't know how many sims it includes, but it's a long walk, and you go to Agnesheim, and you go on this walk, and you see all sorts of art. And unlike a gallery, it's not very samey. It's all very different. So it's quite a fun thing to do if anybody's interested. There was also a blog this morning. It came via Scoop It, so I don't know the exact blog address on the feed. The interview, and it's an interview with Wilder Linden. Wilder Linden's, staff-wise, that is called Patch Linden, and it's his Desert Island Discs, or rather, it's his five favourite destinations in Second Life. It seems to be. I think there's been one previous interview like this, so they're finding a Linden or somebody celebrity and asking them to, talk about their 5 favourite places in Second Life, of course. I have a lot of links, mostly to reviews of concerts and occasional destinations and exhibitions. Very good site indeed to look up. It's called showtimemagazine.net. That's Showtime Magazine, written as all one word, .net. And I very rarely publish event listings, at least not in Second Life. There are too many, and if I promote an event, for example, I'm probably contributing to the lag that means it won't happen. But Showtime Magazine is very good at writing reviews of like the day after. So you pick up if you're into music, you pick up a weekly music paper, and you get written reviews of performances during the week. And I think that's quite a good way of getting to know artists. If you read a lot of reviews and they mention a particular artist, then it's better that you put that artist on your to watch list and you look up their gigs and go, rather than get caught in a rat race where everybody wants to go to the same gig at the same time. Now, another great site to read is Inara Pay's blog. It's full of art links and sort of lab-based links, all sorts of things really. And her site is called modemworld.me. She did have a different Modem World address once, but it's now modemworld.me, and it's spelled MODEM WORLD, modem as in those gadgets that made an awful lot of noise when we used to connect to the internet. That's a modem, and her site's modemworld.me. And she had an article this morning about something I didn't even know about. And that is it's been up since the end of last year, apparently. There's a full-scale recreation of Buckingham Palace, where that's the place where Britain's Queen sometimes chooses to live when the flag's flying. And it's in Second Life. So if you check out Inara's site at modemworld.me, she's probably got a link that would tell you where it is. And with a bit of luck, I'll check it out at some point too. Video-wise, too many videos to mention, a lot of installations and stuff. I mentioned Pet Loves earlier because that talk with Will Burns was pretty generic. But there is a series, and I think it must be about up to episode 12 now, called Laser Skaters Avatars. And I'm not entirely sure whether Laser Skater is a brand or whatever, but it's a sort of machinima review of different types of avatars. And the one that came up today was Wartime. The machinima filmer is called Pearl Grey. That's the name of her YouTube channel, I believe. But it's turning out to be quite an interesting experience because she's clearly hunted around for all these different avatars, and she's broken them down into sort of themes, often historical themes. And each episode focuses on a different time period and all the styled avatars she's found from that period in time. And the latest one, as I said, is sort of post-war being the Second World War. So a good series to catch up on, well filmed and everything else. Yeah, plenty of locations, plenty of other YouTubes. I'm really skimming down this list fast just to see if there's anything of particular. Visions of Beauty Gallery here in Second Life has an exhibition by Silas Merlin. I've seen his work. I rather like that. Again, you can find more about that at Inara's Pay's blog. Another good source of Second Life news is the Second Life Inquirer. It's SLENQUIRER.com. And they had a post yesterday on social simulations in Second Life. They are a curious blog. Sometimes they have stuff that, like the latest fashion or gig coming up that I don't bother to post. Other times they have really quite in-depth articles that I think are relevant and I post them. But it's a good site overall. Another artist called Mistero Haifeng, I believe you pronounce it, at a region called the Living Room. And the sim seems to be Lagrange Spaceball, Lagrange. I think the sim is called Lagrange Point, Lagrange, Lagrange, if you get it, all one word. Quite a few things at the LEA, as there always are. LEA 7 has Ziki Questi had a post about it, but it's an exhibition by Rose Borchowski, who of course is a controversial artist. She's been banned from Second Life's birthday celebrations a few times, but not the LEA. She of course is the wife or girlfriend of Peter, the film director in real life. Oh, Lord, my mind has gone blank. Sorry about that. Oh, yeah. And LEA 8, Jane Austen's English Countryside exhibit. Again, this is Jane Austen. Let's see. I'm terrible on memories. I think she wrote things like Pride and Prejudice and those things. And basically, it's a recreation of the English countryside in her times, the time she was writing her acclaimed novels. So that's May in the Park, another art exhibition, owldragonash.wordpress.com for that one. More from Inara, so if you get to modernworld.com, you can just look through the hundreds of posts she has every week. Outer Garden, scanning down here. Let's see. Oh, she also had a post in the week, Modern World ME, called Lyrical Abstraction in Second Life. Another one on the arts. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm scrolling down about 5 days here. But basically, modernworld.me, showtimemagazine.net, and slnquirer.com. Three worthy places to catch up on news. But do check out the Malmo's Writer Twitter feed, because there are a whole lot of other links in there, including lots of YouTube embeds and stuff like that. And there were a couple of the glossy magazines for SL Lifestyle stuff came out this week, earlier in the week. I'm not actually going down that far. Oh, and I should say that Monday's edition of Designing Worlds, they've been on yet another break. I'm getting really confused when their seasons are now. But they were back on Monday with show number 303, and it was part one of a look at Fantasy Fair 2016. And I actually picked that up the other day. I haven't actually had time to watch it yet, but I'm looking forward to it, because I never did make it to Fantasy Fair, of course, which, considered one of my favourite Second Life events, is a real shame. But I've no doubt Sapphire and Elric will give me a bit of a glimpse of it on their shows, so that would be fine. Anyway, too much in that feed for me to read out anything more, but do check it out. So, believe it or not, just the three of us here today, no guests, but we're already at 2.25 hours nearly. So just proving the point where you just can't put good naturalists down, can you?
That's right. Let's talk about this.
Right, let's have a discussion. How can we get more into the show and actually cut down the length of time at the same time? I'm very curious. I would like more feedback on this, particularly in Google Plus. I think is the best place to put it. I get mixed reactions to this show. Some people are saying, well, how good it is, great a place to especially catch up on all this new VR tech and stuff. And then I'm getting other people saying they're wonderful coverage of hypergrid and OpenSim and all very interesting, but I wish there was a bit less of those headsets. I mean, there are a lot of headsets, I've got to agree, but I mean, and it varies from week to week. Frankly, today I occupied the major half of the show, and Maria didn't have much. On other weeks, it's the other way around. It's always interesting to what you want to hear. I mean, my answer to the people who've been making comments is that we cover both, and there seems to be an equal audience for both, and obviously an audience that want to hear about both as well, not an either or, but both.
I'm actually getting similar comments on hypergrid business that I'm spending too much time in VR and not enough on OpenSim. Well, I've got two of those comments I got by email, and I think one of them was in my comments. Well, first of all, whenever anything changes, people are going to complain.
Yeah.
So if we stop doing VR, people will complain. If we start doing VR, people will complain. So from that perspective, we just can't worry about it. But also, I'm noticing that my readership is changing. So my core readers are about like 25,000 unique readers, which is about the same as the number of unique users of OpenSim. So now I don't have all the public grid users reading hypergrid business because I don't cover the social stuff. And as we know, a lot of them are just social users. Yeah. But I do get apparently a lot of business and enterprise readers who are probably using private grids, not public ones. So that skews those numbers. But lately, my readership has doubled with another 20, 30,000 users coming just for the VR stuff because my site's the only one with the QR codes and some of the headset reviews.
Yeah.
So that's just been in the last couple of months. So, and again, people are complaining that I'm spending too much time on VR. And I think that there's a core group of OpenSim users that are worried about how VR is going to change things. Just like back in the old days, there was a core group of internet users who were upset when AOL joined the internet and all these AOLers started surfing the web.
Yeah. Oh, that was a miss. That was a big mistake. How dare they let AOLers onto the internet?
Exactly. All this rabble, And there was a lot of people were really upset that the internet was supposed to be this pure thing for researchers and educators the military. Yeah. And all of a sudden it turned into this free-for-all where anybody could come, It's nuts. It's nuts, I tell you. So a lot of people...
I feel like that even now. I mean, I feel like the World Wide Web, although it was given away free to everybody, was... because there were no stipulations, it's actually been almost destroyed because the information side of the web is buried underneath it.
And by destroyed, you mean bigger than ever and used more than ever? Destroyed in that sense of the word destroyed?
Well, no, that's the thing. You see. But on the other hand, I wouldn't say, despite the previous joke, I wouldn't say, we don't want AOLers on the web and we don't want the average people on the web. The idea was it was an open, democratic platform. What I'm sad about is that the pure information exchange side of it, the bore it, so to speak, is now very hard to find because the way it's all been portalized. And, there was a time when there was a time when you could go to almost any website and, it's progress. I'm not denying that. But it used to be called a level playing field because you couldn't tell the guy in his bedroom who did a nice site from the huge corporation because there were limits to what you could do. But now, of course, it has all developed, and nowadays it's far from a level playing field. You can't go to Google search and easily find some of the one-man sites that are buried underneath. They're still there.
If you search for QR codes, my site's the one that comes up.
Yeah, well, quite. Yeah.
And yes, I'm a one-person thing. The way Google works is the most useful site tends to come out at the top. And they work very, very hard to tweak the algorithms to make that.
Yeah.
And in the early days of the web, it was extremely hard to find any useful information. You had to dig through lots and lots of sites and do keyword searches and use different kinds of directories. It was really, really difficult. And now, most of the time, whatever information you're looking for, no matter how obscure, is in the first page of listings.
Well, I slightly disagree about this goal, but no, I take the point. And anyway, I'm not denying progress. I mean,
Right.
I like to think that there's a sort of level playing field, the spirits of the web in virtual worlds at the moment. But I know darn well that when this stuff takes off, the spirit of cooperation that is there at the start will become a spirit of competing enterprise. And, it will happen at some point, until that happens. I think maybe I tell myself, well, I'll be dead before it happens anyway. But I mean, I tell myself I'm in a golden age.
There is a ton of cooperation right now on the internet, and there's also a lot of competition. And I would say that there's more cooperation now on the internet than there's ever been before. Also more competition than there's ever been before, simply because there's just more stuff than there's ever been before. And it all depends on what you look for. I mean, if you look at things like Wikipedia, if you look at things like crowdfunding sites and all this other stuff, people helping each other is a huge part of the internet, way bigger than it ever used to be, and it continues to expand. So I'm totally an optimist about the internet. Now, when it comes to virtual reality, though, in the transition from OpenSim as this, desktop-based, very small niche platform that only a few people know about. It's very exclusive. It's very self-contained. It's very manageable. It's small. You can kind of know the main players in it very easily, and that creates a unique kind of feel for it. And but the thing is that if it's going to grow, if it's going to actually make a difference in the world, it's going to have to grow. It's going to have to grow, and it's going to have to embrace virtual reality. And I think of right now, I really do believe that OpenSim has a good chance of becoming the platform for virtual reality for the future. Yeah. But I am not covering OpenSim because I'm a fan of OpenSim. I am covering OpenSim because I'm a fan of the open source metaverse.
Well, I'm very much the same, and I think both Mira and I are trying to answer those questions, the comments I raised there. My Twitter feed, right, has always been the mainstay of my involvement in all this. I was certainly Twittering before I ever came into Second Life a decade ago or something. I was on the beta of Twitter for one thing. So, and I don't seek lots of followers, although it never hurts. I certainly don't follow too many people back unless they're useful, because I don't have time to monitor it all. But my own focus, right, at the beginning is the same as it is now. And that was, I'm actually, my real interest is in the empowerment of online tools and ease of use interfaces. Now, to me, the advent of virtual worlds, and particularly Second Life, where we're broadcasting today, was initially a major step. There wasn't anything else quite like Second Life around. It was the pioneer of its ilk. Without Second Life, there possibly would be no OpenSim or Hypergrid. And it represented the future to me, in the sense, there's entertainment there, there's business there, you can have conferences there, you can build there, you can create, you can landscape, you can do all these things. You could do almost virtually anything you could do in real life, and the potential was there. And I had ideas that, this virtual world construct should actually be on my home hard disk, and that I should have lots of virtual rooms that represented my house and office, and that I would walk out of those into what I call the greater metaverse, although there was only, at the time, everybody all thought Second Life was the metaverse, and but sort of blindly ignoring the fact that it was a walled garden run by one particular company. But it was a prototype for what has come later. And recently, as you can probably tell from the headlines I was reading at the top of the show, a lot of my links now point to Maria, VR. And to me, or the inverted commas VR, I should say, but presumably meaning virtuality, of recent months, I've been making a distinction in my mind, as you've probably heard on other shows, between surround vision and actual virtuality. And I think it's a very valid decision because both are immersive, both but one involves presence, the other is consuming surround vision. I think that's really the thing. But the thing is, my Twitter feed has changed. I'm linking to a lot of different things, and I've given up linking to other things because simply the circumstance of my area of interest has changed. I'm interested in how we interface with our not just digital pages, but digital spaces. And, we've got the rise of mobile tech and things that, at the beginning, I would never have predicted that we could put a smartphone. We didn't have smartphones when I started Twittering, but you could put a smartphone into a piece of cardboard and be fully immersed. So the context is always changing. We can't predict the future, but I try to keep up with and post links to signs as to the way the future is going. And I don't. There was an example earlier today when Maria mentioned the I think it's the estate agent or the design suppliers where you prototype your kitchen unit or design space in virtuality, then they check it all for you, put you in virtuality, then you approve it, and they come around and fit it for you or build it. Great example of using a limited space VR for particular functions so you can build in real life. That is great. But I no longer tweet links like that because VR has become such an industry buzzword that to me that is just yet another example. There are hundreds every day of people beginning to use VR for various things. Now, if I see somebody's using VR for something for the first time, or I read it and think, God, that's a good use for VR, then I'll tweet it because I'll think something significant is happening in that thread, if you see what I mean. And if new devices come online, there'll be 100 headsets a week, cardboard type ones or something, but one of them may include some unique features that I may mention, just as I mentioned the gesture-based keyboard that you wear on your fingers today. To me, that stood out from the crowd as something significant. It may be unimportant, it may not take off, but it may be just one of those things that really does take off and becomes a key part, becomes an almost ubiquitous part of our future interfacing. So I'm very selective, I have to be, and also I don't, if there's a news item, a press release from somebody, I actually probably link to the first instance of the press release. I don't link to every single reprint of the same press release. So, I'm constantly changing the criteria as I go. I drop feeds, I add new feeds, and I try and think in a fairly wide view. And to me, I absolutely love the hypergrid and OpenSim. There's a freedom there I don't have in Second Life. It's also economic for me to have a whole new hobby, which is landscaping and building. Although my main reason for being there is for broadcasting media. So I've got, start with one thing, Maria's use case. Yeah, I'm going to have a broadcasting headquarters. Use case 2. Well, I've been diverted. I'm landscaping now and I'm building and I'm having great fun as a hobby. Everything is in a case of flux. And much as I love the hypergrid, it is the best model for a future, as Maria suggests. I can't ignore the other things going on. High fidelity is coming. I don't think Project Sansar is quite part of the same equation. I think I've got that pretty much sussed now, and that, another program. I don't think that, whereas I think high fidelity will probably be something akin to the hypergrid, I don't think Project Sansar will. I think it will be a proprietary system that has unique features and could actually be very big but not in quite the same way. But I keep an eye on all these things. And for all I know, there may be another platform will start up next week and it will be live and in prototype. And it will knock the shoes off the hypergrid or Second Life and High Fidelity and everybody else. It's unlikely, but it could happen. And the moment that happens, I just have to revise my context and say, hang on, something's happening here. It's not a diversion. It is a significant diversion that may affect the future trajectory. How can we make that open, or how can we liberalize that, becomes the issue. How can something new comes along? Is it going to be proprietary or is it going to be open? And, I'm always going to swing to the open.
Yeah.
But I have to constantly readjust what I'm doing. I don't even link to every post at Hypergrid Business anymore because Maria's colleague David may do an article which is just tangentially off my radar. I will read it and see it, but I won't consider it something important enough to add to my Twitter feed. Most of Maria's articles do get added because they are important to my Twitter feed. As any reader of my stream knows, you get pretty much all the Hypergrid Business there too. But there will be occasions when you don't, because it's a divergent point which has not slipped off my radar, but has been consciously omitted from my radar so that I can concentrate on what you might call the worldview. And, I think what Maria's saying with Hypergrid Business is very similar. The status of not just the hypergrid, but VR and these technologies at this point in time is what it is, and it's constantly in flux. And we want to be on top of that flux, not just on the cutting edge, but also see what is happening, what is changing, and adapt to those changes. And at some point, I think the VR hardware experience will be as crucial to Second Life and the hypergrid as it is to new platforms that are built specifically for the immersive vision. So I don't see this distinct separation, though I can appreciate that people who are OpenSim hypergrid users and are fanatical about it and really aren't interested in every anecdotal device that comes out that might one day enable them to see it better. But I am, if you see what I mean, because if we could one day get 90 frames a second in OpenSim and view it in a compellingly easy to use pair of glasses, we will be picking up those glasses. Even if we're not prone to picking up headsets, we will probably pick up a pair of fold-out glasses so we can see better. Every morning when I do the news, I go over and I lie down with my iPad. And my iPad is on a tray and it's on the stand, the smart stand. So it's a screen in front of me. Now, to read, I need to wear glasses. And I must say, it is great that my glasses magnify the screen. They magnify the words for me to see, but also when I play a video, it's like looking at a big screen, because the combination of the fact the iPad's near to me and I'm wearing glasses means that it's a better experience than switching on the television, to be honest. And I find myself watching increasingly more videos on the iPad wearing glasses than I do watching a television-style monitor. Simply because it's more satisfying and it's closer to me, it's all easy to use. And to me, the VR thing, could be like that. If it's as easy as putting on a pair of glasses and bringing the world to me, rather than me having to, adjust distances and things or whatever, then that's that's just a good thing. And, technology is changing, all these things are changing. If I'm still around in 10 years' time, maybe I won't even need to wear glasses anymore or have an iPad. There'll be something else that brings it to me.
But don't get implants.
Yeah, do not get implants. They'll be out of date immediately.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. So if a new, something like Leap Motions come along, and the typewriter gloves that work with gestures, all that is a possible part of a future equation. And you may think, well, why do I want a little strap on my wrist that allows me to type on any surface, but I've got to do it a funny way? But if that did become ubiquitous, like say the mouse did or something, and people, a few typists test it and it is actually really good, It may become a whole part of our interfacing equation with computers, and that will bear on our interfacing with virtual worlds.
Mhm.
It won't matter that I haven't got a keyboard on the Oculus if my hands are a keyboard on any surface and I don't need to see what I'm typing.
Or if the speech recognition gets good enough that you just, whenever you do text, you wind up dictating.
Yeah, you talk it and it's automatically transcribed. Yeah, so in the future we will use the human race by nature will choose to use the tools that are easiest. The only real danger I find in the modern world is, and I'm not going into that corporatization of the web again, but looking at Facebook and things, is that I see technological progress providing the human race with tools to advance ourselves, right? I don't like the idea of a future where those tools are actually used to force us into consuming things, and in fact, the tools are using us rather than the other way around. That's something I feel very strongly about. I want to be in control of my own self, my own destiny, and my own interactions. I don't want to be suckered in to doing things the way an operating system wants me to do it, or the way a particular piece of software wants me to do it. I want the tools at my disposal. I don't want to be at the disposal of something that might as well be a television channel with a limited.
We don't want to have another Microsoft Windows. That we're all trapped within the Windows ecosystem.
Yes, I suppose that my obscure ancient operating system might be a good example. Yes. Well, you get it anyway. So, folks, I don't really know what to say here. I mean, we are who we are. Maria and I overlap on a lot of things. On other things, we don't. On this show, I do my thing. She does her things. Quite often, I mention something that she immediately has got an opinion on too. Other times, she mentions something I've got an opinion, but other times, they're different threads. And James too comes in a conversation with a different thread. That really is what it's all about. And we only target certain topics really where based on guests that we might have from week to week. So my Twitter feed is what it is, the show is what it is, and I think overall that there are enough people out there that are interested in all the stuff and the different angles on it. That's often what makes the great conversations we can get into when we're not actually reading these. So let's see, you read my Twitter feed, for example. It's more difficult to fast forward when you're replaying the show, I've got to admit, because you don't know what you're missing when you're fast forwarding. But normally you know what goes on. I read my news, Maria does hers, we have conversation, roughly speaking. So, you can skip forward or flip back or whatever. When you read my Twitter feed, it's an RSS feed. Presumably you just see the tweets, and one thing takes your fancy and you click on the link. I may post another tweet a few minutes later and you think, oh, boring. And you pass it by. It's simply there as a stream, and, you don't have to watch, you don't have to click, you don't have to listen, That is the beauty of video on demand. It's not live television where you've got to sit for an hour boredom waiting for the good bit to come on, back and forward. Yep, that little long bar along the bottom of your screen where you're watching me now? Well, if you put your mouse over it, there's like a little bubble. And it's on the left or in the middle or on the right. And if you press your mouse on that and slide it a bit, there's a little automagic thing that will skip Maria's VR talk entirely. Oh. And it will allow you to slide backwards and hear me twice instead.
Yep. All right.
Think about it, folks.
So yes. It's almost 6 o'clock over here.
Yep. Nothing like expanding the show again, is there? Okay, well, I think we covered everything. Any final thoughts from James? Any final thoughts?
Nope.
Oh, well, fair enough.
Covered it really well, yep.
Covered it. Maria, anything else?
Nope, I'm just doing my stats. So this is your last chance. If you have a new grid or something else like that, send it my way.
Okay, doke. And having gabbled on and on and on, I can't think of any final thoughts from me either. except that here, fingers crossed for Roddy, Mackie and crew, and let's hope that the Great Canadian Grid makes a second rapid recovery, and that next Saturday isn't a third repeat of the whole exercise. Yeah,
miserable.
seriously bad news indeed, but we will recover. I'm quite sure of it. So that's it for this week. I'd like to thank both my co-hosts, as it were now, for being here. Thank you to Maria from Bible Good Business. Thank you, Maria.
Always a pleasure to be here.
And thank you to James Atloud, also multitasking on our cameras at the same time. Thank you, James.
Absolutely, Mal, and it's such an exciting time with all these things coming together, headsets, OpenSim. It's a great time to be talking about this stuff.
Yeah, and as you say, it does all come together. So
yep.
if you don't like something, tune out. Turn on, tune in, and then tune out if you really want to. Okay. Well, now, I'm almost tempted to say we will be back same time, same place next week. But actually, our intention is not to be here at all. We want to be back at our HQ on the Great Canadian Grid, our hypergrid HQ, as we call it. Hopefully, we will be. And if all does go according to plan, Roddy Mackie, who obviously couldn't make it last week, has actually rescheduled to be with us next week, assuming we're on a grid where he's not too busy trying to find it or get it going again. So hopefully he'll be joining us next week. But we'll hope, and hopefully we'll be back there. So that's that. But whatever happens, we will be returning at the same time, if not the same place, if you catch my meaning. So that's it for this week. And all that remains is for me to wish you a very good morning, a very good afternoon, a very good evening, or indeed a good tomorrow, depending on wherever and whenever you are. And we will see you soon. Bye for now.